Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the new philosophy. So basically, it's an idea I've actually thought about it and I've developed over in the last 5 years in my studies of Greek philosophy and world civilization. Is that modern philosophy is actually not really what it should be. Well, we all should have freedom of expression. We all should have share ideas. But the problem with modern philosophy, in my opinion, is that we are disregarding several things in our world that could be incorporated into our philosophy. Let me give you an example. We have so many computers nowadays, the internet, and you rarely see a modern philosopher writing a book about um, the philosophy of internet or the philosophy of computers. Usually philosophy is limited to arguing in favor of God's existence or not, or in favor of some political ideology, or explaining the nature of the soul. But these philosophers all have cell phones. They could also have access to virtual reality. Why are they not doing philosophy for these things? In the ancient world, fine, a philosopher could um, write and explain and describe about the wind and the sun and the moon and the stars and the waves in the ocean and the rivers and the trees, and maybe the buildings, the pyramids. But today, modern philosophers are writing pieces of literature that are not compatible with our modern world. Imagine how awesome it would have been an entire book with an in-depth philosophy of how computers work, the flow of electrons in a circuit in a motherboard, how data is stored in a computer, how that is similar to how maybe information is stored in our brain, how virtual reality can explain the origin of the universe and the simulations in the virtual world in the softwares of computers could be the groundwork for explaining natural laws and equations, where students and philosophers could make trips to anywhere in reality, even different realities, to have a better understanding of dimensions, of possibilities throughout infinity. How the study of the microchip could shine some light into understanding brain neurons, how quantum computers could lead for machines to develop something akin to consciousness. And all that in mind, we have to understand that when you pick up a book on philosophy and you start reading and you say, "Oh, this is a philosopher of the 21st century." Okay. And then in the first chapter, he spent 30 pages trying to explain the nature of the soul. And then in the next chapter, he tries to describe why he thinks God may exist or not. And then how is that different from philosophy in the Middle Ages? Seriously. If you really want to be a philosopher of the 21st century, third millennium, don't tell me that the cell phone is not any interesting. Don't tell me that your laptop is boring. If you really want to be a philosopher in the modern age, you can still write about the soul. You can still argue in favor or against God's existence. You can still talk about all these things that philosophers in the Middle Ages talked about. You can talk about the wind, the ocean, the grass, the sand, the pyramids, whatever, just like the natural world and the constructions in the ancient world were like. But you have more reasons to make philosophy today when it comes to science and technology because we have more of it. And yet, I remember, I'm not going to say which philosophy book it was, but I remember reading a philosophical book. The author was from the 21st century. 200 pages trying to prove that life is an illusion. Is that any different from the Middle Ages? Arguments like that has been made in the past. But in the modern age, we have other things to talk about. We have other things to discuss and teach and ask questions. In the same way that Aristotle in ancient Greece was discussing about the nature of atoms or the physical nature of things. Why don't you, or if you plan on becoming a philosopher in the modern age, why don't you explore a little bit more about the technology you use? Instead of writing 300 pages about the nature of the soul, write 1,000 pages about the implication, about the philosophical implication of how car engines work. I can guarantee you, 1,000 pages would be even a small amount to discuss about car engines or rocket science. Some people may disagree. Then at one point it becomes redundant. No. If you really explore the nature of technology, you will see that technology, which is human made, like we made the technology, gives us an impression that it's not that different from the natural world itself. Because when you see a frog, or when you see a bird, or when you see a butterfly, and you open the bird or the frog, and you see all the organs and um, the intestine and the lungs, right? The heart, and you could do the same for anything, a fish. Natural world has an order, has a structure. When you open up cell phone, you see circuits. The amount that humans can do with technology today is very, very scary. Never underestimate the power of the human mind because even though we did not create the universe, we created a computer. And then we can create a software in that hardware that is an entire universe itself. So the computer is the key into explaining literally everything. And then you go to a library on the section of 21st century philosophers, and believe it or not, none of the things I said will be there. And then you open one book. Oh, the soul and God and so forth. And then, okay, another redundancy. And then you open another book. Oh, um, not metaphysics and life, existence is an illusion. Seriously? What a waste of time. I mean, in my opinion, if I believe we should have freedom of like expression, but life is not an illusion. That's a fact. Life is real, and there are rules to follow. There's a danger into believing things are illusory. Well, don't go drive a car thinking life is an illusion. It's probably not going to work out. And don't use the idea that life is an illusion to help you overcome fear of some kind. That also doesn't work because the way human mind works is the best of all philosophies when it comes to psychology and that idea of how human behavior is influenced by how we think and past experiences. Best thing to do is to just let it go. And of course, read lots of books, communicate, and plan for the future. And use reason, use your head, think. So that's the issue. Are we incorporating this philosophy in the schools today? That's another thing. So I decided to make this video because I see that modern philosophy is no different from Middle Age philosophy. And to make matters even worse, because I've seen this too, the creator of computers, the creator of these technologies, transistors, capacitors, the creator of television, of course, they knew the physics of it a lot in order to build these machines that have dominated the world. But you don't see an in-depth explanation, philosophical explanation of all these technologies coming from them. Instead, you have a bunch of textbooks with lots of equations, with not enough explanation, forcing the student and having to figure it out all by himself. And that's what puts people away from studying physics in college. There seems to not be an in-depth, philosophical, meaningful reason to learn that's the content in science. It seems like there's no, it's needing some salt. It's like you learn a bunch of equations, you learn a bunch of theories, but What's the meaning? Like, why I'm learning this? Who came up with this? So I'll leave for other videos to discuss how we can get into the physics. Because if we don't do that, less and less people in the future will know about it. And that means that ignorance will prevail. So, believe it or not, the future of the world will be saved only through education. And philosophy will play a big part of it in it. Because so far we have, in the last few centuries, we totally gave up on philosophy, really. And the philosopher needs an update. Seriously. I already know about the soul. I want to learn about um, I want to learn about transistors. So that's the argument here. How we need to evolve. Thanks for watching.